this computer. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is to open up Unreal. And you can either do that if you have the icon on your desktop like this, you just double click it and it'll take you to this Unreal browser, project browser launcher, this guy. You probably don't have this portion where it says recent projects. Yours probably looks something more like this where it says new projects. Now, if you don't have this Unreal logo, this guy right here, if you don't have that on your desktop, that's okay. You can open up your Epic Games launcher. That's this guy right here. And inside the Epic Games launcher is the Unreal button. You click on that, and it takes you to the Unreal Unreal Engine version of the Epic Games launcher. And inside there, you'll see library, and then you'll click on the engine that you installed. Right, this is all part of the assignment that was like due last week. And I assume that everyone has done it because everyone's an adult. So you should be at this part. You click launch. And when you click launch, it'll take you to this Unreal project browser. So I'll give everyone a minute to get that sorted and get into the Unreal project browser. And then once everyone's there, we can move on. And whenever we come to class, or you guys join the Zoom or whatever, just go ahead and open up Unreal because that's pretty much what we're going to be using most of the class. All right, so I'm going to assume that most people are there.
Yes, I'm there.
Awesome. So right here where it says new project categories, there's different types of categories besides just making games, right? Of course, the class is about creation, design and creation of games, but just know that the Unreal Engine is used in film, right? The whole Star Wars, right? The Book of Boba Fett, what is it? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the guy's name. His whole thing, all that was done in, well, not all of it, but some of the effects were done in Unreal. The motorcycle, Indian motorcycles, that's all their commercials are done in Unreal. Architecture, I've actually had students make the San Antonio Zoo, but there are actually quite a lot of jobs out there for you 3D modelers to make apartments and townhomes and new homes, as if it was like a model home. So instead of a person going to that model home and you know, getting COVID or whatever, hopefully that doesn't happen to them, but you know, the whole idea of like social distance. So all these companies are looking for artists to make their homes in 3D, and then people who want to buy the homes, instead of going and look at the homes personally, they just get onto their computer or their phone and they look at the home through either the Unreal Engine or Unity or whatever. And then the same thing for automotive design and manufacturing design. So you know, some of your cars like Toyota and Honda are made, and BMW are made. The prototypes of those are made in the Unreal Engine, and then those are hopefully eventually made into real cars. That hasn't happened yet, but that would be cool. And some of the stuff I've done, right? I've worked for the 16th Air Force making flight sims. So that's like, you know, architecture and engineering type stuff, because like they have to work on the plane and it disassembles in VR and reassembles and stuff like that. The engine, I mean, disassembles and reassembles. And of course I made games, and I still work for a golfing company making golf simulations for the PGA. All right, so anyway, what I want you guys to do, since we're making games, is I want you to click on games. We'll hit next. And then we have this templates, just select a template. So what a template is sort of like the base logic to get your game off the ground, basically, right? And I think Unity has this as well. But the idea is like, if I click on first person, then I'm saying that my game is going to be kind of a first person shooter, like Portal or Call of Duty or anything like that. Or if I do like a vehicle event scene, then my game's going to be like, maybe Grand Theft Auto, or maybe it's a driving simulation game. Obviously, virtual reality for VR, and top down for, like Diablo, and so on and so forth, right? It gives you the templates, or the base template for setting up your game like that. Like, now you don't have to choose anything; you can go blank if you want to. But for what we're going to do for today is we're going to work in first person. So we're going to have all the basic assets we need to build a first person shooter game. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And then it takes you to project settings. And inside there is this guy right here, Blueprint in C++. So there's two ways to write code in Unreal. The first one is blueprints, and this is what's called a visual scripting system. And basically the idea is that you have these nodes, and you connect the nodes via wires, or noodles is what they're called, and then the node pulses, sends a signal from one node to the next, and then that node pulses and then goes to the next node, and so on and so forth. And that's how your logic functions. The other way is obviously writing C++. C++ is one of the more difficult programming languages, and also very sought after. Someone who knows C++ is probably making six figures or more easily. So keep that in mind if you want to become a programmer. All right, so for what we're going to do, though, for our class, we're just going to mess around in blueprints, okay? That's much easier to mess around in there and kind of get the visual idea and understanding of what we're doing through the visual scripting system. And then the rest of the stuff is just sort of like stuff that we don't need to worry about. We'll leave it at maximum quality. We can leave ray tracing disabled since we're not doing anything crazy. We're working on the desktop, and having the starter content is fine. All right, so here at the bottom, it says select our location. And hopefully it's saying your documents folder, which mine is. And also inside there, it's saying Unreal project. That's fine. So this is where I'm going to save my stuff. And you should save your stuff in the same area. And then what I want you to do is I want you to name your project my first project. And if you were with me on Thursday, you can name it my second project. It's fine. Oh yeah, see, mine's already complaining. So my first second project. That's fine. What? That's too long. Oh no, that's fine. We'll just do like that. Something along those lines. Okay. Here we'll do my first project. There we go. All right, and once you got that typed in, you just hit create project right here at the bottom. And that'll create the project. It takes a minute or two to set up. And while that's happening, I am going to send a link in chat to the document that I'm referencing, which is this document right here. It's just showing us the different types of UI editors in the Unreal Engine. So you have the main level editor. That's this guy right here, what we're looking at now. And if you have this new plugins are available, if this shows up, you can just hit dismiss, that's fine. And if you actually have anything popping up for now, if you have anything popping up, you can hit dismiss. So we can discuss the UI. So when I was talking about this on Thursday, I asked the class if you have used Maya or not before. And I'll ask the same thing. If you've used Maya or Max or ZBrush or even Unity, and the reason I ask this is because what I'm teaching you now is Unreal 4, but literally Unreal 5 is supposed to come out sometime this year, supposedly the first quarter of this year, but we'll see. All right. And then who knows, 2 years from now, it'll be Unreal 6. And that's when you guys, most of you will probably graduate, right? From bachelor's degree, right? So what happens 10 years from now will be Unreal 55 or something, Unity 5000. And there won't be a professor there to teach you how to use that. So you have to sort of figure it out on your own. And if you understand what these engines are doing and how they do things similarly, you can learn how to learn to use the engine. And what I mean by that is, if we open, I don't have Unity, but if we opened up Unity, you would have the same sort of place actors thing. You would have the same world outliner. You'd have the same details panel. If we opened Maya, it would be the same thing. You have your world outliner, you have your details panel, you have your browser, you have a shelf, a Maya shelf at the top. You have a viewport, both in Unity, Maya, and Unreal viewport, right? And so if we're looking at it, and we've learned another engine management or another editing program, right, like Maya or Unreal or Unity or whatever, we can use what we've learned from that and transfer it to the new program. This includes in-house programs too, right? So like Valve uses their own in-house program. Blizzard has their Frostbite engine and all that. Is that right? Oh, yeah. I don't know. Whoever. Oh no, sorry, it's DICE who has the Frostbite engine, right? That's FIFA and Battlefield and all that. It's all proprietary. No one teaches that. You have to learn it when you get into the job there, but it's similar to this. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into it. So at the top here we have our actually right here, we'll start right here. At the top we have our file, edit, window, and help. Okay, this is like any program, Word, Excel, Google Docs. It's right. These are all pretty similar. Like even if we look at the document I have now, right? We have file, edit, view, right? It's the same stuff. Okay. And we might go into these occasionally. Especially, we'll probably go into this a lot, right? File, save all. We'll do that one a lot. Right below that is our place actors, which we'll get into in just a second. I want to go into this toolbar. Okay, so the toolbar is like a Maya shelf, and it just has all of the most common things that you're going to do in Unreal readily available for you. You probably don't have this make a scans thing. Readily available for you. Okay, so like different settings, how to manipulate blueprints, if you want to do a level sequence, if you want to set up VR, different build methods to build your project, and of course our play to play the project. And if we want, we can hit play now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now I'm in the game, right? And I can move around and shoot and WASD and all that stuff. Now, if I want to get out of the game, I just hit escape on the keyboard. And that takes me out. And you'll know that you're in and out of the game based off the toolbar here. You can see I have this pause, stop, and eject. And when I'm out of the game, I only have play. So it's very important that you know that you're in the game or you're not in the game. Because in the viewport, it looks very similar, right? Okay. So that's, we'll come back to the toolbar when we need it, but that's the gist of the high overview of the toolbar. And then on the right side, we have this world outliner. Okay, so the world outliner is just like the outliner in Maya, where you can see all of the objects, and these objects are called actors. So keep that in mind. Everything in Unreal is called an actor. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so basically in the outliner, you can select anything that's in your current world, and it'll select it in the viewport for you, right? And just like in Maya, I can hit the F key, and what that does is, so you can see I have this object selected right here, right? And I did it through the world outliner. If I hit F, it centers on our object for us, right? And this is the same key, I believe, in Unity and also in Maya for sure. Actually, I want to get into the viewport thing in just a second. Let's continue with the world outliner. So this is the idea, right? So you can select anything in the world outliner. From there, I can actually right-click any of these. And when I have an object select, I can right-click, and I get this context menu that allows me to manipulate this particular object. I can also click like this eyeball to hide the object. Now this only hides the object in the editor, not necessarily in the game. So if I like turn that off, the eyeball off, and I'm in the game, you can see that it's still there. Where is it at? This one right here. Oh, sorry, actually, let's turn this around so you can see. See, it's still there, right there. And it's invisible in the editor. Okay, so that's what the eyeball does for our world outliner. All right, so that's the world outliner. The other cool thing is our details panel. So whenever I have an object selected, and you saw when I did not have an object selected, or actually here, we'll just do it this way. When I have an object selected, the details panel tells me the details of that particular object. Okay, so in this case, I have a static mesh component selected, or sorry, static mesh actor selected, and you can see it has a mesh, it has a material, that material has textures. In this case, this object has physics. So if I put it high in the air and I press play, it'll fall. I can hit it with a gun, all that because it has physics. It can have collision. It has different properties for lighting. You know, I can make it visible in the game or not. So now it's still there. The actor is still there, but the visibility to the player is not there, right? We'll mess with this. This is probably the very first thing that we mess with. And all sorts of stuff just for this particular actor, for the static mesh actor, right? If I do light source, right, it's different. I can manipulate how bright the light is, right? I can change the color of the lighting, and I can do all sorts of stuff because I have the light source actor selected. You know, all these different entities here allow me to do all sorts of different stuff. All right, and that's through the details panel. Okay. So let's just keep going around. I'll come back to this message log and output log in just a second. Let's go to this content browser. All right. So the content browser is where all of your assets are that you have for this particular project, whether you've imported them in from other applications or you imported assets in from, you know, from like TurboSquid or something like that, or if you created your own assets, right? So we can actually create our own like blueprint, we call it, you know, whatever we want, blah, 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 right? So this is now a new asset in our content browser that we can add into our world as an entity in our world. The cool thing about the content browser, or what I like to personally do in the content browser, is click the show hide source panel. And I personally like to have my folder list like that. The other thing I like to do too is I think the folders are icons are too big. So I go to this view options and I do scale. And I scale it down just a bit. Right, you can scale it up and down. I scale it down pretty good. Just so I could see, like if there's a big list of folders, I can see all the folders and all the objects in there. And in this content browser, like I said, you can import stuff. So we can import things. You can do it through by right-clicking and saying import, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the content browser. We're going to go up now to the place actors. So the place actors is sort of the things that are already in Unreal, right? Placing cubes, placing spheres, cylinders. And how I'm doing that is I'm just left click and dragging and placing it into the scene. Right, you can also place volumes, so kill Z volume, whatever this is. You can do geometry, so maybe let's have some stairs, maybe a cool cone, right? Maybe we want to have a cinematic camera, cool, level sequence actor. It doesn't matter, right? Maybe we want to have more lights. So that's what the place actor is, right? It's just left click and drag whatever actor you want into the world. Okay. So now the centerpiece is our viewport. Okay. And the viewport is where our, you know, what we see in for the world, right? In the left-hand side here, we have the different views that we want, right? Top down, bottom, left, right, and of course, perspective. We have different view modes, unlit, wireframing, you know, maybe player collision, so on and so forth. And of course, any detail flags you want to have turned on or turned off so you can work in the world and make the world. Especially if you have like a slower computer, you can turn some of the stuff off and then like, oh, I want to see what it looks like now, turn it back on. Okay, so that's that at the upper left. On the right-hand side here, we have our different translates, right? So we have, this is transform, this is rotation and scale, right? And you can see how my gizmo changes. And just like in Maya, Q, E, what is it? No, sorry, W, E, and R for movement, transform. E is for rotation, I believe, and R is for scale. So yeah, R for scale, E rotation, and W for movement. Oh, actually that won't scale, but we can do, actually we will do just a standard cube so you can see. There you go. Right, so the scale, E for rotation, and W for movement. And you can see it changing. This next one right here, this is changes it from between world and local space. This is especially important for like movement and rotation. So you can see how my gizmo changes. So if I rotate this weirdly, let's say like this, and I want to move it locally this way, I would change my transform to local, and then I can move it up and down like this, or world, and I can't, right? Okay, so the next one is our different snaps. So this one is snapping to the grid on a on the movement on transform. So it's right now snapping to a I believe it's centimeter, 10 centimeters grid. You can turn it off if you want. You can do surface snapping, which is kind of cool. The next one is rotation. Is the same idea, right? Rotates at 10 degrees, right? 20, 30, 40. You can set it to 5 if you want, so it rotates at 5 degrees. Or you can turn it completely off by clicking this guy right here. And then it just rotates based off of a float value. And then the same thing is our scale, right? So scaling, you know, and of course, the smaller the number, the more smooth the scaling is, right? Because it's not snapping it to such a great number versus like 10, blah, so big. And then this one right here is our camera speed. So we can adjust the speed of our camera, which I haven't even showed you guys how to use the camera, but that's okay. We can adjust the speed of camera, and then we can also adjust the speed scaler so that if you really want, you can make the camera like ridiculously fast, like pew, right? And but normally I leave it around 4, depending on what I'm working on, and I leave the scaler around 1. Sometimes I'll lower it, and I just do it through here. Okay, so let's talk about how to move around in the viewport. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do it. The first one is you're going to hold down right mouse. So it's hold right mouse. And while you're holding right mouse, you can use WASD or the arrow keys to move around. All right, and by the way, I'm typing this in chat too, so you guys can see it in chat. But this is how you move around in Unreal by holding down right mouse and using WASD. And then you use the mouse to look up and down and all that, right? Cool. Let's see, move around. The other way to move around is you can do you can hold right mouse and then hold left mouse. And when you do that, so you hold right and left, you go up and down like this. When you go forward and backwards on the mouse, and then when you go side to side on the mouse, you go like side to side in the game. Well, in the editor, we're not in the game, right? The other thing you can do is hold left mouse just by itself. So just holding left mouse by itself, and when you do, it's sort of like you're driving along a plane. But when you use the mouse forward and backwards, and you look on a plane left and right when you do the mouse like that. There are other keys too, like Q and E, I believe. Q and E when holding right mouse. And then that will do up and down. So it's the same as doing left and right mouse together. But you got to hold right mouse to do that. Okay, so holding right mouse and WASD. There's also Z and C. So that's zebra and Charlie, or Zulu and Charlie, with right mouse. So hold right mouse and then Z and C. I almost never use it, like almost never. I'm more inclined to do F for focus on an object. So I'll select an object. Let's say I want to select it here in the viewport. I'm doing that by left clicking, and then I can just hit F to focus on it. So I like that much better than being like, oh, what is that object? Let me zoom in on it, you know. Ooh. I don't know. I don't like it. I'd rather just hit F to focus on an object like that. All right, so what else is there? Oh, there's a mouse wheel. So mouse wheel lets you zoom in and out. And I think that actually moves. No, that's the same as Z and C. So I use that sometimes, but not always. And then let's see, what else do I normally do? I do this, Q, E, W, move around left and right. Left click to select an object. I think I talked about that already. We got W, E, R for the different movements. Cool. So this is the level editor, right? The main level editor. Now, Unreal has other editors. Any questions on this editor before we get into the other editors? Any questions about how to move or anything like that?
All good here.
I have a question.
Yeah,
actually.
go ahead.
So last semester I had a class that was also using Unreal Engine, and I ran into a problem where like I knew how to like get rid of the stuff. Like if you click on a square or a cube or anything, and you press like delete, it gets rid of it. But there's like a black hole around. And so when I go to, I think it was settings, and like and just to get rid of that, black area, it didn't let me, because it was I didn't have, what was it called, swarm. But that's because of the firewall, and I was trying, and I spent almost a day trying to get rid of that. So you know how to get rid of that, or get swarm back on?
No, I don't, to be honest. It's probably something you need to deal with IT if it's a school computer, but if it's your personal one,
it's my personal one. And so yeah, it's definitely my personal one, but I have a laptop that didn't have that problem. It's the computer that I'm using right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Swarm is used to build lighting, so you need to have that, and that's what you're talking about. Is or for the rest of the students, basically, you see this. I believe, as I understand it, you're talking about the shadows, and right now, because this is a physics object, the shadow moves with the object, right? But if it was a stationary object like this guy, then the shadow stays, right? But if we rebuild the lighting, then right, that's what's happening right now. The lighting is built to say, hey, this block doesn't move, so I'm going to save resources by putting the shadows there permanently as an illusion, right? The player doesn't care, they don't know. But if you rebuild the lighting, then this will go away. But in order to rebuild lighting, you have to have swarm.
Yeah.
So you did remind me of one other thing, by the way. So that The other thing you guys can do is when you have an object selected. So right now I have this object selected and I hold down Alt. And then I let's see, hold down Alt and hold left mouse. And then I can drag around that object. Oh, no, I need to focus on it first. So sorry. It's focus first. So F for focus. And then hold Alt and hold left mouse. And then it should work. Yeah, blue, there you go. All right. Any other questions? All right, cool. It's good that some of you guys already had some Unreal experience. It's great. So let's talk about some settings we can do in here to if you have a slower computer. When you do make these changes, it affects the visibility of what you're seeing. So like when I talk about exponential fog and you have the settings turned down low, you're not going to see those the fog. The same thing for lighting and stuff like that. But if we go to settings and you have a really slow computer, you can go to the engine scalability settings and you can set your quality to whatever, low, high, epic. I don't recommend, well, I have it mine at cinematic, but I have a pretty powerful computer. But you don't have to have it that high. You can leave it at epic if you have a really good computer. Or if you have a really low computer, you can change it to low. And then when you want to come back and you're like, oh, I want to look at the exponential fog. I want to see how that looks, or I want to see how lighting looks. You can come back, turn it on, and you'll be back at your like 2 or 3 FPS or whatever it is because your computer's not that great. But at least you can see how the lighting looks. So it's just a little trick to help you with Unreal. Oh, I forgot about these guys, the message log and the output log. So if you don't have these message log and the output log, like if your screen looks like this, then that's okay. We can add those. So what we'll do is we'll go to Window, Developer Tools, Message Log. And if your message log ends up being like this, or maybe it's like this, oops, like that, that's okay. Just minimize it like any other window. And I left click and drag on the tab here. And I normally put it right here, but you can put yours wherever you want. And then we'll do the same thing for the output log. So it's Window, Developer Tools, Output Log. And so you can see my output log. I don't like how it's like 3-tier like that. I don't like that. I want mine to be stacked on top of each other. So I'm just going to left click and drag the tab so that they're tabbed out like this, like a Google Chrome or whatever. So the message log tells us all about the anything that's wrong in Unreal. So when we build a blueprint, we do something, we build materials, something like that, and it has an error, compile error, the message log will tell us what's wrong most of the time. At least point us in the right direction of where it finds fault, and we can use that to resolve any issues in the that we have with our blueprints. The output log is basically outputs everything you do. So if I move objects, I delete objects, whatever, you can see here, right? Deleted that actor. The output log lets me know that I did that thing. Okay. Let's see. So what else do we want? Let me get rid of some of these cubes and some of this other stuff that I added. And this one, that's fine, whatever. Okay. Oh, and extra lighting and the level sequencer and this thing. Wow, I added a lot. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys is the blueprint editor, or sorry, the level blueprint editor. So if you go right here in your toolbars, you go to Open Level Blueprint. So very similar to the main level editor. The only difference is, see, we have a details panel. The only difference is we really don't have an world outliner. Instead, we have this sort of my blueprint, which ends up being an outliner, quote unquote, outliner for all the different functions that we're going to create, all the different macros we'll create, variables, and any event dispatchers. In the level blueprint editor, you can see right here, level blueprint editor, we have an event graph. And this event graph is for anything that's specific to this particular level. And we can add, I was talking about the blueprint system, visual scripting system, right? So we can, we can add a custom node, and then from there we can do, whatever we want, and we can have all sorts of cool stuff that does whatever, right? Blah. I don't know. Here, I'll just do there. There you go. You get the idea, right? And you can see how we have a node. It has a pin. That pin has a noodle. It connects to another pin, which is a node, and then so on and so forth. Up here we have our toolbar where we'll almost always hit compile and save. But this level blueprint editor probably won't use that much, but just know that, hey, it exists. The next one is a blueprint editor. So I'm going to go here to blueprint class. I'm going to pick an actor. I'll just go blueprint editor. And it also looks very similar to our main level editor, right? We have a details panel on the right. We have a outliner. It's called components. It's all the components in our particular blueprint. And we have that my blueprint thing, the same thing we saw in the level editor, where we can have all the different functions, variables, macros, and so on and so forth. But also different than the level editor, we have this viewport, which allows us to see all the components we add. So if I add a cube, you can see now I have a cube that's added to our viewport and also added to our outliner, the components outliner. But unlike the level editor, we do have an event graph. You can see here's some basic nodes that get used. And we also have a construction script. A construction script is used to build the blueprint before the game begins. Okay, so that is the high overview of a blueprint editor. When we come back to on Thursday, we will definitely be using this right off the bat. All right, so any questions on those two guys, the blueprint editor and the level blueprint editor? Hopefully not. Let me go to a mesh editor. So if we click on any static mesh actor, so I just click on this guy, right? Because it's just a cube. And I click on the details panel right here, static mesh, and I double click the static mesh itself. It opens up the static mesh editor. And from here, we can mess with collision. So you can see right now, that's a simple collision. And if I turn on complex, you can see there's a complex collision. We can mess with the pivot points. We can mess with bounds, all sorts of stuff in here. We can also mess with different types of LODing. How did you get to the blueprint editor again? That's a good question. And what I did is I created a blueprint. So I just right-clicked in our content browser. I clicked blueprint class. I selected actor, and I created a blueprint like that. We will do this for sure on Thursday. So don't worry about like, oh, how's he doing it? Because you're gonna have plenty of opportunity to make a bunch of blueprints in my class. Anyway, so this is the and then you can see we have a viewport, we have LODs, right? We won't use that too much in this class. It's more for your art track guys. There's also a materials editor. So again, right, we have a viewport. Look, we have the different views, right? And then we can also manipulate stuff just like in other details panels, right? And yeah, so this is actually an instance of this material. There's actually a material editor like this, which some of you who are in our track probably have messed with. And look, this looks just like how Maya's material editor is, right? So you have your diffuse, your metallics, your specular. Oh, it's not called diffuse anymore. It's called, I forget what it's called. But yeah, your normals and all that. And of course, you can change the materials to whatever you want. Actually, I don't want to do it because it's actually an engine one, but you get the idea. And over here is your different things you can drag into your material editor. And this is what it'll look like in the end. You can see you have different views of how it'll look. Okay, calm down, Unreal. And so on and so forth. No, I don't want to save that. All right, so let's see. Did I get all of them? I believe I did. Hold up, liner, viewports, da. Okay, cool. So, any questions on what we've done? Albedo, yeah, that's what it is. Thank you. Appreciate it. If there's no questions, then what I'm gonna do is we'll stop class right here because that's just like a ton of information I just threw into you guys. I just like too much information, I'm sure. So we'll
At
stop
least you
here.
recorded it.
Right? Yes, I did. And
which I'm glad, very grateful. Makes
yeah,
it a little bit easier.
I still haven't set up the YouTube yet. I will.
Oh, you can take your time on that.
Well, anyway, we'll stop right here, and when we come back on Thursday, what we'll do is we're going to talk about puzzles and games. So that's this guy right here, and you may have seen this game, maybe maybe never heard of it, but we will go over this game that you may have heard and how they do puzzles. And then once we talk about that, get done talking about that, we will sort of build the concept behind making every single one of these puzzles. Every single one of these puzzles has the exact same sort of formula behind it on how it's made. And when I show you that, you're going to be like, I don't like games anymore. It's like, I love pizza, and then you make pizza for like 6 months straight at Pizza Hut when you're like 16 or whatever, and you're like, I never want to eat pizza again. So, but I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's going to be fun, I assure you, and we'll have a good time making a very, very, very simple concept of how to make puzzles. All right, so I'll see you guys Thursday. Have a good one.
Have a good day.